Good afternoon, Bayview Mac Race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis, giving you the final report and race overview of this year's 100th anniversary edition of the Bayview Mac Race, presented by National Fleet Services. I want to apologize for those that may have been looking for this report last week. I got caught up in the Delta travel snafu getting back from Michigan. And it took a little while to recover from that. Plus, I used this time to do some interesting analyses that I'm hoping to share with you. This program is sponsored by Van Toll and Vitelli Insurance Group and LCS Record Retrieval. So, without further ado, let's go to our usual baseline of graphics here. And what I think I'd like to do today is not run through all these 300 boats going up the lake, as you see here, but I selectively pull out and highlight what those that were in the on the podiums, actually at the head of the podiums, and what their strategies and tactics were during the race, with a few interesting examples. So I'm going to front-loaded a few of these things. Now, as we all know and haven't looked at the results, there was a pretty big dominance by the Class A and B boats in overall scoring for this race. I think most of us agree their luck, as you would call it, would be in having not experienced as much light air as most of the rest of the fleet did in the middle and latter stages of the race out there in the lake. But nonetheless, let's look at to see this with using this tool. Look to see how the winning boat, both overall and in Class A, that's Mockingbird, what they did. And so I've highlighted them here. This is, of course, a GL 52. Chris Duon's boat. They, at this stage of the race, had an early lead. Looked like they favored the shoreline. Let's look a little bit more detail to see what happened. And certainly that looks ugly there at that stage. 2 and 3 knots of boat speed, getting off the shoreline. I haven't spoken to them, but clearly they made a commitment early to follow that track, whereas others, as you can see, were further out and committed to perhaps going a bit offshore off the start, including some of their rivals. So let's just scroll forward in time and see what happened. And they kind of stuck to that early track. Now, those that, oops, sorry, this is a danger. This scroll bar is not very sticky. I talked to the YB guys about this. But if we go back a little bit to see where they converge, at this point, the Mockingbird team has a lead, and they're going fast. So the breeze filled in more toward the rum line of the course. They then had that opportunity to head out there on port tack, lead the group that followed them out of there, including Wizard, who was first to finish. Out here, Heartbreaker, Bob Hughes' boat, they chose going out, and as you can see, they're going fast as well, 10 knots. That's pretty good boat speed out there, but are going to be forced to take their stern and then have Mockingbird now. Whoops, there's that unsticky scroll bar. Have Mockingbird now make that covering maneuver to then just kind of lead the fleet back in toward the rum line and lead them out. Now, it got a little dodgy again as the wind went light. So, little less breeze, still moving along pretty well. 8 knots is not bad. Nimbus, Jack Ketronos' boat, this is an older generation TP52 that's based in Buffalo, New York. Jack doesn't participate regularly with the GL 52s. but they're still good sailors, and they chose, as you can see, an outside track. Don't know if Mockingbird had them in their sights and felt like they needed to cover them. They were probably more focused on their GL52 group, who were kind of lined up in behind him. But Jack and his team took that outside position. In fact, as you can see, they kept going out. So rather than engage with the rest of the group, they went ahead and went out. But with 6.1 knots of boat speed and the Mockingbird and the others up in the 7s and 8s, that may not have been a great move. And as they proceed up the course, they have to consider coming back in and taking a few sterns, but still not doing too badly. But now they're back in the breeze going 8 knots along with everybody else. So Mockingbird now has a lead position, and for the rest of the race leads the pack until they get up in here where it starts to get light, and now it's a match race with WinQuest, and I'm not sure. I think I have to blow it up, but also to show the Askews with their TP52 new to them. Is it hidden in there? Anyway, yeah. So and then it's kind of a 3-boat challenge now to get to the finish. As you can see, whoops, where are we? If I can get that to hold. Yeah, DeVos and his team got sucked up a little bit in the island, had to get out. Mockingbird the same. So this all came down for that class to who was fighting along the island, who was able to take advantage of the dying air and get out of there, and in toward the finish, as you see here. So, yeah, it's the Askews managed to get across the finish line, but I think it was less than a minute ahead of Mockingbird. Mockingbird rates a little bit lower, so they won overall. So I won't say a straightforward course, but it had a lot less holes and potholes out on the course than the slower boats out on the course. So that's our Class A story. This is Class B, and here are the boat to focus on is Madcap Santa Cruz 52. Very well-sailed boat. I believe they won their class in the race, the Chicago race, a week earlier. They all were also engaged in a very important role, which was to rescue a man overboard off of Jim Murray's boat, Callisto. And the Madcap guys were able to pick up Sean Doherty. And for that effort and outstanding seamanship, they won the Arthur Hansen Trophy from U.S. Sailing. So kudos to them. Out on this course, they also did well. I thought this was kind of a defining move from what I saw in their tracks in Class B. Like Class A, a little bit of a choice whether to go out or go in. Some went out. So Sinduda is one of their sister ships. They went out looking for. They had pretty good boat speed there, 8.5 knots. Madcap a little less, but they didn't get lured to go there. Talisman, which is a larger and rated faster boat, was leading the pack throughout this race for that class. And then what's also interesting, of course, is the boats that are smaller but rate fast, MC2 and a Monte 2. So they were in the mix for sure at this stage. But if we look at what Madcap has done in staying on this kind of close to rumline track, I think this is probably a key move for them in not getting lured outside, sail more distance for not that much more speed. Now, certainly 10.2 knots is pretty fast. That's a good, probably close reaching pace. The other guys are going fairly fast out here as well. However, they have more distance to sail. So I think that was a key move for the Madcap team. And again, they don't have the same problem with holes in the wind and the race course at this part of the course that the later boats had. So they just maintained that. Got a little bit light there, and got a little funky and fluky at this stage. As you can see, boat speeds dropped down to 2 knots, a little bit of tacking, a little bit of hunting for breeze. But in being between the finish and their competition here, they were really well positioned to take advantage of that. So good job to the Madcap guys in Class B. Class E, I thought this was interesting class. This class was led and eventually won by Jake Thomas and a team from Sandusky, Ohio. They were on Jake's new to him JPK 1080. And this is an interesting boat. It's one of those sort of wide stern boats that are like a lot of the French modern French designs are really especially good offshore and windy conditions because they've got the additional form stability of the wide stern in their hull forms. That probably made a difference out here. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. This is Class E. I'm thinking a smoke show was in Class F. This is Class E. This is actually a great, an interesting story as well. Tom Meyer was sailing Eagle One, one of a few Eagle Ones, Bashford Howison 41. If we look at their class and what they did, they too, interesting play on the race course. They're a little bit faster than their rivals and initially stuck fairly close to the rum line. When they were at this point in the course, it was decent breeze, and so didn't seem to be any incentive to stray further out looking for more breeze. The two smaller boats that are very fast are Chico 2 and Warsaw. They're both turbo 1D35s that are quite fast in light air conditions. I don't even know if that speed is real. 14 knots? Wow, that's really fast. But in any case, they went out probably looking for more pressure. Oops, there's that sticky bar. Apologies for that. And yet the Eagle One team sticking closer to rum line, having good speed. I think this too ended up being a good strategy rather than going too far away from rum to hunt for more pressure and more speed. I think what happened here is they probably got lifted seven knots, not terribly fast, but then once they get out there, and then this is when I think the pressure filled in and they got lifted when that northeasterly turned to an easterly. And this is where they really start going fast while the others are struggling a bit. And they start going really fast here. So yeah, 8.8 knots, likely reaching conditions. And that prompted me to think about why is it that they're so fast in these reaching conditions? What do they have in their sail plan that's interesting? And to do that, I looked at, with the ORC system, you can look up everybody's certificate in the system. You simply do a search for boat name, sail number, a variety of criteria, and I wanted to do the same and just demonstrate how this works. So 2024 certificates, and there's hundreds of thousands of boats in this database, by the way. So you got to, name alone isn't always the best search tool. So I'm narrowing it down to the U.S., to this year. Well, this year is only relevant for races that we're talking about this year. And then I'll give the name Eagle One. And we'll do this search. And this is, by the way, is readily accessible. You just need to register for a free login, and you too can get access to this information. So you can see there's several different Eagle Ones. Tim was sailing. Tim, I believe, owns all of them. Not quite sure, but he was sailing as Andrews 65 in this course. But Tom Meyer and his team were sailing this Eagle one, which is a Bashford Howison 41. And this is the certificate. Now, what I'm looking for in this certificate is why are they so fast in that condition? What is it in their sail plan? So you can see page 1 has a graphic with some scale drawings of the boat and its sail plan, some basic information of how much they weigh, what their crew weight is, and other sail areas and so on. This is a summary of the rated speeds and their ratings. So the Bayview Mac Shore course, their rating is 1.1023 on time scoring. The way that works, by the way, is time on time scoring is that coefficient times your elapsed time will equal your corrected time. So it's a really simple equation. But what I'm looking for is here on page 4, which lists the largest sails in the inventory. And in most cases, we're trying to get everybody to list all their sails, all their headsails, all their spinnakers. And what's interesting here is for that close reaching is this thing here, CO19. This is a code 0 spinnaker, so it has, most people know what those are. There's actually a subtle difference between a code 0 and a headsail set flying. The difference is the ratio of their mid-girth measurement to their foot measurement. The code 0 is a little larger. It's at being at or over 75% in that mid-girth to foot length ratio. So it won't be able to sail as close to the wind as a smaller headsail set flying, which oftentimes are called code 65s and that sort of thing. And they would be listed in here. So they don't have one of those in their inventory, but they did have a code 0. And that makes me think that while they were out here on the course, got the right wind angle, got the right conditions, put that thing up, and just started rocketing ahead and maintaining that lead throughout the rest of the race. So to me, that seemed like a key move for them. They had a little hiccup there with a little light air, as you can see, like everybody in that sector of the race course in time. They all had issues getting slow, but they were able to rocket ahead enough so they didn't get caught in whatever hole was out here that the rest of the class did. They were well ahead of it already past, I believe that's Hammond Bay. So good on them. I'm going to switch over now to the next group in Class F, and this is the JPK 1080. This is Jake Thomas's boat from Toledo. It's called Smoke Show. So the Smoke Show in Class F, we can look at what they did. Now, they had a different approach. Now, remember, being a slower rated boats, these guys started before the classes that we just saw. So this is a little earlier in the day on Saturday. They opted to immediately go out and not along the shore. And you can see, whoops, there's that non-sticky tracker. Yeah, so, and had decent breeze. So they elected to go sail a little further away on the hunt for breeze outside and made that work for them. We'll see as they get up here where everybody's now in their class is going well. 6.7 knots. Yeah, that's not blazing fast compared to the other boats, but these other guys are going well. Brian Bullock's. That's a Columbia 32, interesting all carbon boat, fairly small but very fast for its length. They were going along faster than the Smoke Show at that stage. So it's very interesting to look at this. And at that point, they get headed, tack, and now they get lifted with more pressure at this stage. And they, too, going fast and able to capitalize on the couple of wind shifts there to maintain their lead over the rest of this class. and then in this part of the race course, keep leading, keep extending. And they too, I believe in their inventory, this is from memory because I did measure that boat, is they have, I believe they too have if not a code 0, I think they may have a code 65. So these are powerful sails that in these close reaching conditions can really be put to great use. So we see what they did for the rest of the race. And again, they hit some light air there, as you can see, wiggling around. But the upshot of this, and as well as Tom Meyer's boat, Eagle One, these guys won their classes by enormous margins. I mean, 3 and 4 hours in corrected time. So they're worth highlighting, I think, and worthy of note. And congrats to them for a great race. Let's see. The double-handed class, I wanted to touch on this and one other. And this the winner in this class was American Flyer. It's Chris Searles, Olsen 34, which is not really a high-speed boat, but they sailed it very well. Excuse me, and I think did a nice job. Let's just kind of briefly look at their strategy. They were one of the early starters, being one of the slow classes, and started off along the shoreline as most everybody did at that stage. They didn't go all the way outside like some of their competitors. They stuck closer to the rum line. So this little moment here is where the others who went outside and started to get fast may not have paid off in terms of time and distance and VMG up the course, or what we call VMC, velocity made good on the course. Then wind shifts. They stayed in face, but they really stayed close to rum line. I think that's the key here. And in going up, they too get caught in a few holes, but stay out of that bay, which I understand is a trap, and just work the light air that everybody at this would have been Monday afternoon. It got pretty light up there, but they stuck with it and did a nice job. Look at all that light air there and ahead of the island, or sorry, to the lee of the island. And they stuck it out and did well in their class. So kudos to them. I did want to say one boat I was looking at was Freya. That is a Nelson Merrick 40 that has a new owner. He's from Chicago. This is the first time Bayview race. The boat is really set up for double-handed sailing. And I corresponded with him afterwards. I said, hey, I know you're not a bad sailor. What happened? And he said they broke the main halyard. So those poor guys were out there in this stuff sailing with only a headsail. There it is, Freya. So Mike Toby just didn't have a great race because he didn't have all his sails, but kudos to him for sticking with it. Other teams may have dropped out with that level of frustration, but these guys are tough in the double-handed class, and they stuck with it. So hats off to them. I think I had one more, and is this it? Sorry, I'm wanted to highlight one more of the teams out here, and this is interesting because while Division I and Division II were not scored together, if they were, this team actually did exceptionally well, even though they were in Division II. So in the so-called cruising class. Let's see. Yeah, Class Q. Here we are. Where are they? Oh, Class Q. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, and this is Traveler. So Jeremy Thompson's boat. This is not, you look at this and you go, yep, that is a cruising boat. It's a Grampian 30, late 70s design, I think. And they were they were among, they may have been the first class to start. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, so they struggled a bit to get off the start line. I'm not sure whether they get off before the postponement or just after, but yeah, real light going. Jeremy told me before the race, yeah, we're going to do our usual game plan. Now remember, these guys sail the short course all the time. They are not like Class A, B, and C and the faster boats that normally sail the Cove Island course. These guys are short course specialists. And as he told me, yep, we sail this way all the time, and we stick with staying close to shore. They were not going to get tempted to go out beyond out into the lake to look for more breeze, or at least most of them weren't. A few of them did, though, as you can see. But Jeremy stuck with a game plan because, again, this is not a high-speed boat. This boat will plug along. You got to keep it moving. And he's learned how to do that. And as you can see, slavishly devoted to not sailing any extra distance. Now, this doesn't mean that Jeremy is not savvy. He's quite good, and he knows how to do weather routing and grid files and all that, which we'll discuss in a moment. But again, his experience and possibly also augmented with routing information led him and his team to stick to their game plan of staying close to shore wherever possible. They obviously had some spins over here in the light air, but Jeremy, in doing that, and the Traveler, I mean, they led all of that class, and then not only that, but in overall scoring, they were in the top 10. They were ninth place overall. So exceptional effort on the part of Jeremy and his very old but very reliable boat Traveler. They are repeat winners in that class from last year and many years earlier. So a shout out to them. Okay, now's the time to look over at what did the routing say. I actually showed this slide in one of my early broadcasts during the race, and this is what the weather routing would look like if you used what's called the ECMWF, which is a mid-range weather model, and if you use the polars. These routes are for a group of 50 boats that the Mac Race Authority, the MRA, had chosen for the our ORC programmers and tech team to give a routing for the race for these 50 boats that were spread across all classes in the event. This is just a selection. It's not the entire fleet. And I think I talked about this where, it was interesting to see how there was a split, some that were that the weather prediction and their polar suggested that they go out, make this big approach from the north, others sticking to shore, and some others somewhere in the middle. So from what we just saw in the tracking stories I just gave you, it's interesting to compare that to what routing software and tools suggested to do. And I also did this, which is kind of an interesting thing. I did a study. I'll bring that across. Hopefully you all can see that. Of that selection of 50 boats in the fleet, I plotted the actual elapsed time versus the predicted elapsed time. So the routing software gives you a predicted time that you should finish that race based on the weather and based on your polars. When the horizontal axis is the overall results scored using the shore course ratings. So the shore course model that the MRA has it's developed over the years, was used in the scoring of this race, but we did this experiment looking at another method. So when I looked at what the routing software suggested as finish times, and plotted that against the results here on the bottom axis, so lead boat over here. This actually is not Mockingbird. It's I think the boat chosen was Dr. Phil O'Neill's boat, Natalie J. And as you can see, the elapsed time and the actual elapsed time and the predicted time are pretty darn close. In fact, actual times are in blue, predicted times are orange, and so they actually outperformed their predicted time by a small margin. Most everybody else had an actual time that was slower, but Natalie J outperformed that. If you want to look at this is a little hard to read, but basically because on the horizontal axis is the placing. Each one of these boats linked by their actual time here in blue and their predicted time here in orange. This is the same boat with two different times, actual and predicted. So pretty close correspondence for the top three, and these are all Class A boats. And as we get, and you could see kind of a pretty close correlation here with those Class A and B class boats that are did well in the overall standings. So you can see, yeah, there's a pretty, maybe a correlation there, and perhaps even a bias, because those guys sailed in breeze that was a little easier prediction. But as you got further out in time in the slower boats, it becomes a little bit more random. The one outlier out here, that's actually Traveler. That's Jeremy Thompson's boat. They're pretty high here in the rankings, in the top 10, and also an amazingly close predicted and elapsed time. And this is even for the short course model. So that's interesting. We'll come to that in a moment. I want to show you that compared to using the weather routing scoring method, which is where ratings were actually derived from the predicted elapsed times and not by the short course model. And when you rank those 50 boats that are ranked here on the horizontal scale, so first place through, and actually 49, because one of the boats in the test fleet retired from the race, you can see a very different distribution. And I thought this was quite interesting. What it implies to me, first of all, and this makes sense, the closeness of predicted and elapsed time is, of course, much closer. So for boats in the top 10, top 15, top 20, as you go further out in the results, there's a bigger gap between predicted and actual time. So that's to be expected, because this is the method used to score the race with this weather routing scoring method. But what I found interesting is that these results are spread out a little more evenly. So the boats that finished later in the race, so these are early finishers down at this end of the scale, late finishers up at this end, and the boats that finished later had, let's call it, a better opportunity at finishing better using this scoring method than in the other scoring method. Now, I'm not going to tell you which boats these are because that's going to invite all kinds of debate and speculation and about this. But I feel it's important to review this. I've shared it with MRA. They too will be looking at this, because this weather routing scoring method has a potential of let's say, recognizing that boats that are slower are going to have different weather and therefore should be scored according to the weather that they see on the course, not according to a theoretical course model. So we're in a transition stage now in offshore racing when we're using our VPP-based rules, whether it's ORC or even ORR. in this method, because it has the potential of recognizing that weather changes mean that boats that are not biased by luck, so fast boats get lucky. I mean, you could argue. I'm not saying anything about these guys that were the first boats to finish. They're exceptional sailers. They have, pro or all or semi-pro teams, good sails, excellent preparation. They're very good. But those are factors we can't really measure because their ratings are based obviously on their sail area and all the other parameters. But in seeing this broader distribution is encouraging, because I think this shows that boats that finish late in the race, such as those up here, still have a chance of being in the top ranks in overall scoring, because they sailed the best to their best ability with what they got on the course. So this is exciting. I think the folks in Chicago are probably doing a similar analysis. Some of you may have followed Newport Bermuda Race. They used a similar method, not exactly the same, but this is pointing toward what could be an interesting future for us in this offshore sector. So I want to leave that with you, and actually leave this photo with you, which those of you that attended the ceremony on the island, a little bit wet, but didn't seem to dampen the spirit. So congratulations to the Fast Tango team. They were class winners once again. Although I have to say that classes were differently defined in this race than they normally are in normal races when there's Cove Island and shore course divisions. But I think their exuberance, enthusiasm reflects how many people felt in this race. I thank you for tuning in. Thanks for your patience. I hope some of this has been informative and entertaining. And on behalf of the race and our sponsors for this show, thank you again. And for now, this is Dobbs Davis signing off from Bayview Mac Race.